This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome to the Youth Voice, a podcast giving young people a voice in politics across the island of Ireland. So today we're joined by Daniel Connolly. He's the Aontú candidate for Newry Armagh. Now, why specifically go for Newry Armagh? Well, that's my constituency. So you'll see a lot of interviews from the constituency because it's where I'm focused, where
it's the best.
and it is the best. And of course, you've got me there, so naturally that's why it's the best. So I wanted to talk to Daniel to get a greater picture of how Aontú works, what it's going to mean for the constituency and what it's going to mean for Northern Ireland, especially as we're only really 3 weeks off the election. It's an exciting time. Today is the last day that anyone can register to vote. So if this goes out at the right time, it'll be out tonight. If not, please tell me you've registered to vote. I hope you have. For young people especially, please get out and vote. This could be one of the biggest elections ever. It is so important to get out and vote. So please do that. If you're listening, you need to use your vote. It's really important. And even if you don't believe in any of them, spoil your ballot. You know, if you want to protest, do that. Show up. You know, take part. You know, yeah. So we'll get into the interview before I go off on a spiel about voting. So you're gunning for my vote and the votes of all the other people in the constituency. To start off, sell it to me. Why should you get my vote?
Okay, so Aontú has 3 pillars, which are our long-term objectives. I'm sure you're familiar with them, but I'll remind you again. It's life, unity, and economic justice. So we're a left-of-centre party when it comes to economics, and we're a pro-life party, and we believe fundamentally in a united Ireland. But I recognise that there are more immediate issues that we need to focus on, and one of those is obviously the cost of living crisis that we're living through. From my own background, I'm a father of a young family, and I'm finding it very hard. I feel the pinch myself to meet costs, and you get your budget sorted for the month, and then all of a sudden you get a letter for car tax or your MOT's due or whatever, and then you really have to struggle to find and make ends meet. So I think that's a really important issue. And I think actually some parties are talking about it more than others. We're always talking about it. But the thing that makes us different is we don't just diagnose the problem, we have solutions to solve it. One of those solutions is to take on more fiscal powers here to the north, so that we can, say, for example, cut VAT on fuel, or we can cut fuel duty itself. So the great thing about that is not only will it reduce cost for families and hardworking people, but it'll also reduce them for businesses too. I'm reminded of something that happened a couple of weeks ago in our constituency, Dermot. Newry, Mourne and Down District Council wrote a nice letter to Rishi Sunak, and they called on him to stop the change in red diesel tax. Okay, so basically, you can use red diesel at the minute if you're in manufacturing, if you're in construction, or if you're in agriculture. So you can use them for forklifts or tractors, and that's going to change soon. So it'll mean that it'll be more expensive for businesses and for construction and the manufacturing sector. And instead of calling for those powers to be devolved so that we can reduce that or change that ourselves, other so-called nationalist parties just asked Mr. Sunak not to do it. And that's one of the things that Aontú is concerned about. We believe that as much devolution as possible should happen to the north so we can solve our own problems. It's basic necessity of self-determination.
And one of the big issues that we saw, I think it was last week, was the Irish language legislation that the British government has U-turned. And while a lot of Irish speakers and Irish language activists have come out firmly in opposition to this U-turn, what can we do about the Irish language? What is your position and your party's position on Acting na Gaeilge? What is your position?
My position is that Acting na Gaeilge, as it's currently constituted, isn't quite strong enough, but it's a really good starting point. Okay, so things like allowing Irish to be taught or to be used in courts, that's really good. But we want to get to a position really, in the end, we want to be a united Ireland. So the position we want to get to with regards to the Irish language is to have a system where the Irish language is recognised the same way that it is down south. So the Act na Gaeilge, as it's currently proposed, doesn't do that, but we absolutely support it. And as an Irish Republican, it's very difficult to call on the British government to legislate for us. The problem is Irish language was promised in the Good Friday Agreement inexplicitly, and then it was explicitly promised in the St. Andrews Agreement of 2007. So it's been long promised and not delivered. So it needs to be delivered right now, preferably through the Assembly.
And one of the other big U-turns we saw that has gathered a lot of opposition within right across the UK, but we have seen a lot. There's been protests at City Hall in Belfast. Was the British government U-turn, and then kind of change on conversion therapy. So initially it was going to be a blanket ban on all conversion therapy. Then there was no ban. Now there seems to be a ban, but it leaves out transgender people. What's your position on that?
So Aontú doesn't have a party position. We have votes of conscience on issues such as this. My own position, look, I know I have loads of gay friends. My cousin is gay, and there's nothing that we could do. There's nothing I could say. There's nothing that anyone could say or convince the gay away. You can't pray the gay away. I think it's a question of biology. People are born gay or they are not. So I don't think they can be converted. My only concern with the proposed legislation would be its infringement upon civil liberties. So things like if you asked your pastor and you were a Presbyterian or even a Catholic, and you asked your priest to help you pray about same-sex attraction, that it could be criminalized. So things like that I have some concerns about, but I don't think at root that we can convert gay people.
And on Aontú as a party, a lot of people call it Catholic Sinn Féin or pro-life Sinn Féin or Sinn Féin, but a bit more conservative. Is that the truth? Is that all that really separates Aontú and Sinn Féin, or is there more to it?
No, that's absolutely not the truth. We have individual party political differences. So on different policies like integrated education or the COVID passport, abortion is one of them, but it's not the only one. But really, at the root of the difference to me is it's your first time voting this time, yeah? For me, when I first voted, I voted in an election in 2009 where Sinn Féin were promising change, incidentally. And actually, they've been in government since 1998, that's 24 years, and they've been one of the two leading parties in government for the last 15 years. And in this election, they have the audacity, not just to say that they're the party of change, but they're the party of, quote, real change, which is even more absurd. We, as a party, think that good government should be returned to the North because for the last 15 years, it's been incredibly dysfunctional. It's been so dysfunctional that it's collapsed on occasion. Now, in what other system in the world would parties collapsing their own government be returned to that government? It's a crazy situation. So I think there is a deeper issue there that differentiates us from Sinn Féin. As I've mentioned, all the different party issues, and then the ambition issue is one thing that really drives me. We should be really ambitious for the North and for Ireland in general, and that means taking on more powers. And we haven't gained more powers in all of Sinn Féin's government. And in actual fact, in 2015, whenever the welfare reform debate was happening, they allowed Westminster to pass welfare reform that they had previously stymied for a few years.
And you mentioned integrated education. Now, your background is education. A few weeks ago at the Alliance Party conference, I sat down with Kelly Armstrong. It is one of the bigger issues. There was very nearly a petition of concern for an integrated education bill. I think we spoke to Daniel McCrossan and Robbie Butler of the SDLP and UUP about integrated education. What is your position on it, and should there be more of it?
So I've taught in different schools. I've taught in statement sales schools, Catholic schools, and in integrated schools. So I actually think parents and children should have the choice of going to whatever school they want. I want a diverse society. I want a pluralistic society. I want a society that respects parental choice, religious liberty, the idea that you can go to whatever school is right for you and for your family. And integrated education is obviously a sector which should be available. The problem is with the integrated education bill is that it diverts funding and attention towards that one sector. And I would disagree with the bill if it was called something else, if it was called the Catholic education sector bill or the state education bill, and it did the same thing to those sectors. So it's really a point of principle. I think that all schools should be equal in terms of opportunity and in terms of funding, and the parental choice should be respected above all as a principle.
And staying on education, oh my God, I've completely lost my point there. I'll come back to the education one because I've completely forgotten the question. One of the things on the Aontú website and within the Aontú kind of policy documents, I suppose, that is on there, is putting values back at the center of our political culture. What does that mean?
So we have a political culture where people put their finger in the wind and see which way the political winds are blowing. And we have that particularly within the nationalist leadership that decides, for example, on the issue of the right to life, which way they think it's going to turn, and then they go and they U-turn on their previous policy in order to attract more voters. As a party in Aontú, we believe in doing what we believe is right, not in what's popular. So it can be difficult to be in Aontú. Whenever I first began to run, I thought, actually, we're going to get a lot of anger on the doors, but I was prepared for that. I was prepared to stand my ground and say, look, this is what I believe. If you don't believe it, that's okay. We can disagree amicably. But in actual fact, every door I've knocked on, it's either been people want to know more about us, who we are, or they actually support us and they think, I haven't had someone to vote for in a while, and I'm going to give you my number one or a number two or whatever.
And on local issues, Daisy Hill Hospital seems to be the big one that is gripping local politics. There has been public meetings. There's been a huge campaign. This really seems to be coming under the Bengal report, which was signed up to by the big parties. What would be your position, and what would you do on the Daisy Hill issue? Okay,
so Daisy Hill, there's a multifaceted approach to Daisy Hill. First of all, I was born in Daisy Hill. My daughter was born in Daisy Hill. In just 2 months from now, my second daughter will be born in Daisy Hill. So it's somewhere I go for all my healthcare. So I cherish it. I love it. It's got a place in my family history as well as being my primary center of care. So I believe it's really important not only that we keep Daisy Hill, but we actually make it thrive in a way it has previously. So bringing back emergency general surgery to Daisy Hill is absolutely essential. In terms of healthcare as a whole, I believe in a free at the point of use healthcare system, and I believe that so much that it should be rolled out across the whole island of Ireland. And in such a system as that, our border hospitals like Daisy Hill will be absolutely essential, because Daisy Hill at the minute not just serves South Armagh and South Down, but it serves North Louth and East Monaghan too. And I have family in Castleblaney, I have family in Dundalk. Actually, my father's from Dundalk. So I care about people in Louth and Monaghan as much as I care about people in Armagh and Down. And it's absolutely essential that Daisy Hill is at the leading front of healthcare reform in this country, and that it doesn't just survive, it thrives. It's one of the things that I'm running on, and I think it's so important. And the other thing is, my wife's a nurse. So for our dinner talk, we talk about healthcare policy, and it's an issue which I don't just care about, but it's an issue which I think about and know about a lot as well.
And in this election, Sinn Féin could be the biggest party. They could take the First Minister slot. And a lot of people think that by voting into, they're splitting the vote. And that by doing so, they could be taking away the opportunity to see a nationalist Republican First Minister. Why should nationalists vote for you when there could be a situation in which, for the first time ever, Northern Ireland could, at its head, have someone from the nationalist background?
Well, there's a few things with that. First thing I'll say is splitting the vote in this election isn't a thing because it's a PRSTV election. So you can have your number one as in complete good conscience who you actually want, and then you can say 2, 3, 4, 5, whoever you want after that. And the second thing I'll say about the Sinn Féin First Minister, I have my own party. I have my own policy idea about that, and that's changing the position of Deputy First Minister to be Taoiseach, so that you will have whatever is the largest Nationalist Party will nominate the Taoiseach, and whatever is the largest Unionist Party will nominate the First Minister, and they will be joint roles as they currently are, but they'll have different names. Okay, so, and then that's a way of reflecting both sides of the community, and it'll end forever this nasty, silly debate about who gets to play First Minister this time. But on a general point, Sinn Féin, when I was your age, they used to promise a United Ireland by 2016. Before that, it was Smash Stormont. They used to say that Irish freedom was just around the corner. They don't say any of that anymore. Now they just say, oh, well, Michelle O'Neill for First Minister. Is that the ambition of nationalism? Is that the ambition of republicanism? To just delete the word deputy from Michelle O'Neill's title? It's a silly, ridiculous idea, and it's so unambitious for our people.
And the final question I want to touch on is Aontú as a party. It is a small party. I don't think that's an unfair thing to say. The party did pick up a surprisingly large amount of the vote in the last Dáil elections, but it only has one TD, and it only has a small amount of councillors in the 6 counties. Is Aontú going to perform well in this election?
I think we are, yeah, absolutely. And I think that I get that from all the good reception that I meet in person. I get a lot of people that say that they haven't voted in years, but they're going to vote this time. And even if you disagree with Aontú, you can see that that's a good thing, because the increase in turnout legitimizes our process. We provide an alternative. We provide a change to what's already on offer, because the C5 parties have been around since at least the 1970s. Some of them, like Sinn Féin, have been around since 1905, and the Ulster Unionists were about since the Home Rule crisis. So it's, I mean, if we want change, we have to vote for change, and I think Aontú are going to do very well in this election.
I think we'll wrap up there. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
As always, to our listeners, thank you for listening. Again, as I said at the start, please, if you have a vote, get out and vote, make use of it, because this could be a huge election, and it could be a massive election for young people. This is an opportunity to put young people at the front of our electoral campaigns. Get out and vote. I know I'll be voting on May 5th, and I hope everyone else does too. The polling stations open at 7, close at 10 p.m. As always, you can read our blog at www.youthvoiceni.com. I'm going to drop a little link to an article I wrote in the Belfast Telegraph into the description, because you should give it a read. It's all about my thoughts on this election and how I'm approaching being a history student coming into an election. You can obviously catch us on Twitter at YouthVoiceNI. You can catch us on Instagram at YouthVoice_NI. I've been Dermot, and I'll see you all next time.